Hey there, this is Nick, a former Amazon bar raiser, and today I will show you how to answer Amazon's functional interview questions. What are functional interview questions? They test your expertise and depth in your chosen subject matter in the field of your profession. I've prepared a few sample questions for you to illustrate my point better. So starting at the top, for a software development engineer, a functional question could sound something like, code Amazon's locker delivery system for a city block. You're provided with the number of blocks in your city, represented by an array, and a list of X and Y coordinates for existing locker locations. For a solutions architect, design X or Twitter. Frankly, this can be a good system design question for an engineer as well. For a PM, you are the technical product manager in charge of launching Alexa in a new territory, let's say South Africa. You have 12 months and a $3 million budget until launch. How would you do it? And for a finance person at the end, to round up my examples, how would you build a discounted cash flow valuation model to acquire the exclusive rights to the next Hollywood blockbuster for Prime Video? Write up the high-level P&L model entries on the whiteboard. So how do you answer these questions? You answer them in 4 specific steps. Step 1, you ask clarifying questions on your own. Before you provide your own answer, take a pause, think for a few seconds, and ask a clarifying question or two. Let me demonstrate what that looks like with our sample functional questions here. So for example, let's start at the top. For coding of the locker delivery system, if I'm an engineer, I could ask, hey, what language do I need to do this in? Then I could also ask, what are my requirements for scalability? How many users will this thing have? What are my encryption requirements? When do I need to launch this by? So on and so forth. Now, mind you, don't overdo it. Do not ask too many clarifying questions. Maybe ask 1 or 2 and then move forward with the answer. The benefit of you asking clarifying questions is primarily twofold. 1, the interviewer is going to see that you're brave, you're courageous to ask for specific questions in order to gain clarity. And 2, they're going to see that you care. You want to make sure that you evaluate the issue from different aspects, from different angles, and you provide the most complete answer as possible. Okay, step number 2 in answering Amazon's functional questions is to be very specific with your answer. Use data, use specific illustrations, and in order to do so, you need to make concrete assumptions and show those assumptions, declare those assumptions to the interviewer. Let's go back to our example. Let me tackle the second sample question for a solutions architect or an SDE, design X Twitter. What are going to be some of the assumptions that I'm going to have to make in order to be specific? So I'm going to come up with an assumption of how many tweets per second my system would need to write to the database. Also, how many tweets per second I'm going to have to read from the database. How many users are going to be in the system. I'm also going to make assumptions for the size, the storage size of each tweet. Maybe it's 100 bytes. Maybe it's 150 bytes. The specific number doesn't matter that much. Then I'm going to specify how I'll design my tables in my database. I'm going to have a user table. I'm going to have a tweets table. Then I'm going to make assumptions for my encryption and my security. Then I'm going to start coming up with the solution after I've painted the user requirements. Then I'm going to design the UI for the system. Then I'm going to assume and declare how the tweet behaves, what the workflow of a tweet looks like. The user would send the tweet, then that tweet is going to get captured by DynamoDB and sent to all the followers of the user based on the table of followers. Then I'm going to come up with specific assumptions for sharding and for auto-scaling for Dynamo. On and on and on. You see how you cannot make a mistake by being specific and coming up with concrete assumptions, declaring what those assumptions are, using lots of data and illustrations. The reason why you can't fail by doing so is that by being specific, you face 2 possible outcomes. You can either be right or you can be wrong. If you're right, high five. The interviewer is going to love you. If you're wrong, they're going to correct your assumption in flight. Then you're going to examine their logic and you're going to go into a back and forth with them. And if their logic is more sound than yours, then you're going to amend your assumption and provide a different response. So you see how in either case, you won't lose. The only way you'll be penalized for your Amazon functional interview answers is if you are not specific, if you are afraid to commit, if you wave your hands, and if you're not conclusive. Do not make that mistake. Okay, next we go to step 3. In step 3, when answering the Amazon functional questions, you need to describe how you would fix the problem in the short term. Let's go back to our made-up examples to illustrate how that works. So for the PM example, I'm in charge of launching Alexa in South Africa. I have 12 months and $3 million. How am I going to do this? For example, I could state that, hey, if I have 12 months to ship this thing, I'm going to give myself 3 months at the end as a PM to make sure that I fight fires and any outages and anything that's unforeseen. So I'm actually going to truncate everything from A to Z in 9 months and be ready to go fully operational in 9 months. And I'm going to solve that first. And then if that works well as expected, I'm going to use my follow-up 3 months to tweak the system and make it better, and so on and so forth. Lots of these Amazon functional questions are going to describe a fire. They're going to put you in a conflict situation that you need to get out of. Oftentimes, those questions are going to have a right answer. Sometimes they're not going to have a right answer, or they're going to have multiple right answers. As I mentioned earlier for the previous point, do not worry about if you're right or wrong. Worry about if you are specific. They want to see your courage and bravery to go on a limb, to be confident in your subject matter expertise, and to come up with a solution. And in the process of describing how you're going to solve this in the short term, you are continuing to be very specific, using lots of data and using illustrations. Cool. And step number 4, the final step, is you describe how you would resolve this problem in the long term. Okay, let's go to our final example here. In the finance case, I'm building a DCF valuation model to acquire the rights to the next Hollywood blockbuster for Prime Video, and then you write up the P&L model on the whiteboard. After you provide a coherent response along all the parameters we've talked about already, you should end with, okay, now let's figure out how to solve this for once and always. Why do I need to provide a P&L model to begin with? Isn't there a best practice already? If there isn't, I'm going to take this model that I just built and that's gone through the fire, and then I'm going to share it with all the other teams in Prime Video, in Amazon Games, in Twitch, in what have you. This means you've got to provide a response for the long term. Once everything is fixed, once you've put out the fire, you can shut up and be done. And that would be a decent response, but a much better response is if you go further and you say how you're going to address the root causes of this problem and how you're going to eliminate that root cause in the long term for the future. All right, so those are the 4 steps. Next, what I'd like to share with you is how you can practice these questions with an AI chatbot. I've opened up GPT here. I have prepared a prompt to not waste time. I'm a senior marketing manager applying for an L7 marketing role at Amazon. Let's be even more specific. Amazon Prime Video. Please pretend that you're a seasoned Amazon interviewer who interviews me to test my proficiency and how I can apply these in real life. Please ask me scenario-based functional marketing questions. All right, so we hit enter. Question 3, for example, Prime Video has noticed a decline in engagement from a key demographic over the past quarter. What steps would you take to analyze the cause for this decline? And how would you adjust the marketing strategy to re-engage this demographic and reduce churn? Great, so this is a pretty decent question. You can make question 3 even more specific by asking for a bit more depth. Let's say something like, great, let's take question 3 and please update it by applying specific dollar data and other data requirements in the form of constraints that I have to stay within. Something like that. Okay. Certainly, here's an updated version of question 3. There we go. Now this looks more like an Amazon functional question. There's a 15% decline in engagement. This is the age for that demographic. This demographic contributes $120 million in revenue. I've been given $1.5 million in marketing budget. Here's my time frame. Here's my budget. Here's my KPI requirements. This is great. Flipping back to my talking track, what you should do is prompt the AI that you're an experienced Amazonian, like I just did. And also it helps if you key in your resume and the job description. That's going to make the questions even more credible. Then you should iterate with the list of questions like I did, like I showed you, to make them even more specific and challenging and data-based. I would disregard if the AI offers any analysis of the answers. Let's see. Here, ChatGPT didn't bother on analyzing my answers, but in some cases they do. So the AI bots are really good at coming up with these fake questions that are very close to the pin. They're not good at analyzing the questions. So stay away from that. Use those AI bots to come up with a number of these questions to test yourself, make the questions very challenging, full of constraints, and do it over and over and over again. That's how you're going to train your muscle memory in order to do well during the interview itself. Great. At the end, let's recap everything. Parting thoughts time. There are 4 parts when answering the Amazon functional interview questions. Part number 1 is ask for clarifying questions. Part number 2 is make your own assumptions, state them. Get as many assumptions as possible declared to you when you ask for a clarifying question. If you don't get enough, make them. Part 3 is describe how you're going to fix the problem in the short term. Part 4 is describe how you're going to fix the problem in the long term. Use ChatGPT and other AI chatbots to come up with a list of sample questions for you to practice with. And also spend the majority of your time when preparing for the Amazon interview by practicing behavioral interview answers. Do not spend too much time on functional questions and answers. They are important. Functional questions and answers are important. But what's going to make you or break you in your Amazon interview is your performance on the behavioral part. If you do well there, Amazon's going to hire you. Great. That's all I had for today. Please send me your questions and thoughts. Was this helpful? Was it not? Subscribe to this channel, like this video, but much more importantly is ask me questions. Ask me questions about what other parts of your interview preparation I could help with. Best of luck, chin up, you've got this. Talk to you soon. Bye.